Hi and welcome to the channel. Today I want to show you this beautiful machine by Retro Mechanical Labs, the Distortion Box. This unit, as the name says, contains a distortion and saturation effect filtered by a beautiful low-pass filter, and it has its own dedicated LFO. But if I understood correctly, Retro Mechanical Labs, this small company from Portland, Oregon, USA, they create and assemble these little machines by hand, and instead of having this steady product portfolio, they innovate their designs continuously so that basically every year they have a new specific release, making these little machines into collectible items. Because when I looked for the Distortion Box on the internet before, I found different variations of this physical panel, and what makes me buy this unit right away was actually its patch bay opportunities here. And that's exactly why I like so much those handmade machines, because people try out things that you would normally not see in big companies' portfolio. Like for instance, the possibility here to modulate the filter resonance, as well as the classical well-known possibility of using an LFO to modulate the cutoff frequency in your filter. So in order to understand what this machine is doing in my demo jam here, let me explain a little bit of my signal chain. I'm using the Moog Dfam as a synth drum machine, the Moog Grandmother as my main sound source. The Grandmother is going into the Distortion Box that goes into Planetarium 3 by Neon Egg, that is acting as my reverb and tape delay effects unit alongside with compression. So let me show you how the Grandmother sounds just going through the Planetarium. And now let's engage the Distortion Box. You can't avoid to notice the voltage meter there that gives even more steampunk looks to this art piece. But far from being a full review of this machine, what I wanted to show you a little bit was my explorations here on modulating this unit with control voltage from different modular gear. So let's have a look on my signal chain real quick. The Dfam here is sending its VCA signal to modulate the low pass filter frequency on the Distortion Box. Let me show you how this sounds. So what you hear there, it's actually the audible frequency modulation of the Dfam modulating the cutoff frequency. And of course, this is going through Planetarium reverb and delay. But what I thought was interesting, once you're playing a melody there, that this will complement quite well the output of the Dfam that you didn't hear in this demonstration now, making my all-in-all distortion here more organic in the full composition. And the second modulation I want to show you here was actually getting the LFO from the Grandmother to modulate the high pass filter parameter in the Distortion Box. It is really hard to hear only what the Grandmother LFO is doing to the mix by just playing the keys, but what I will do now is to increase the frequency of the sawtooth LFO in the Grandmother to audible levels, so then you can hear what it does to the overall sound. And I mean, the main pulsation you hear when I play the Grandmother, it's actually coming from the Distortion Box LFO in itself. And that is what is modulating here, according to the labels, my level of saturation. So pay attention to the sound oscillation in relation to the lead there. But yet again, this is a very interesting modulation opportunity because the Distortion Box is not only pre-routing its own LFO to the saturation level, but it also offers you a control voltage patch bay here and output of the LFO wave, both to modulate its own parameters so that you can try out different modulations. But in this case here, I'm actually using the LFO through an attenuator to modulate the Moog Grandmother low-pass cutoff frequency. This was one of the experiments I wanted to do. You can use the LFO here not only on its own parameters but also to interact with other modular gear. And last but not least, I've actually used the envelope on the Moog Grandmother, the positive signal of my envelope, to modulate what the Retro Mechanical Labs calls here mids. And what this does to the sound is that every time my envelope engages in the Moog Grandmother, I have an opening of the filter and the sound gets brighter. Let me show you. Let's zero the sustain in the envelope so you can see only the decay here through the mid sled. I mean, even the artifacts coming from the saturation here are super cool to explore. But you have seen how awesome opportunity to actually interact your other modular stuff to the effects. And this created such an organic sound, and I feel like I'm not even touching the surface of what I can explore with this unit. This is a very short video, but I was super excited about this. I stumbled upon this machine while searching for other gear. I found a very nice store in Europe to get access to this type of boutique equipment, and I wanted to share it with all of you guys. So stay tuned for more explorations around this box together with Neon Egg and more of the modular gear. I got so excited about this demo that I'm thinking to publish a music around the jam you hear in the intro. So thank you all you guys that are following me and following my work, my learning, my progression in the studio as a musician. If you have not been to the channel before, have a look to my playlists there. You can find tutorials and more interesting gear like this one. Let me know in the comments if you want a dedicated episode just for filters. I think I might as well do that kind of exploration only with external filters. And as always, thanks for watching.